Well, hello, Bigfoot enthusiast. Scott here from Squatch America.
And Hannah, domestic goddess, chief cook, and doggy mama here in the paddy wagon tonight. And that dog is farting up a freaking. Don't light anything in here. It will blow the place up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What are you feeding her?
I don't know. Too many cookies.
Probably. Okay. Well, hey, everyone. It is, 20 degrees here in Bridgeport, Texas.
Uh-huh.
Welcome, Renee. Good to see you there. I have to apologize. I got the email out late last night. It's been a little crazy at the day job lately, so I've had to squeeze all my other stuff into the nooks and crannies of my day. Hey, Marc, g'day.
G'day from down under. Yeah.
Yes. All right. So we've got a great show for you tonight, but not until after the intro.
Squatch America, we're on the trail, chasing down the mystery through the rain and hail, with a knock on a tree and a howl in the night. With Squatch America, gonna get it right.
All right, so we got an actual celebrity with us tonight.
Yes.
So we're going to do a little background for you.
Am I reading that?
Yes.
Okay. So, everyone, listen up. The Ape Canyon attack is one of the most legendary Bigfoot encounters in history. It happened in July 1924 when a group of 5 gold prospectors led by Fred Beck were mining deep in the wilderness near Mount St. Helens. According to their account, they'd been noticing large footprints around their cabin for days. Then one of them reportedly shot at a massive hairy creature near the canyon. That night, their cabin came under siege. The miners claimed that several large ape-like creatures began hurling rocks at their cabin, pounding on the walls and roof, and even trying to break in. The attack lasted through the night, with the men firing their rifles to keep the creatures at bay. By morning, the creatures had vanished, and the miners wasted no time escaping the canyon. When they told their story, it made headlines fueling speculation about mountain devils, or what we now call Bigfoot. To this day, the incident remains one of the most debated encounters in Sasquatch history. Was it an overactive imagination, a bear encounter, or real evidence of a Bigfoot attack? That's what we're here to explore tonight with our guest, my favorite hugger in all of the Bigfoot community, Marc Myrsell, who led the rediscovery of the Ape Canyon cabin site.
Hi, Marc.
Hey, thanks, you guys. You know, I got to start by saying I love you guys so much. You know, we first met, I believe, about 3 years ago at the Pocatello, Idaho conference run by our good friend Brandon.
Yes, sir.
You and I, the three of us, just don't see each other enough. So I hate to do this. I hate to do this virtually. I wish I could just hang out with you guys, but you guys are gypsies. You guys are always on the move, so it's hard to track you guys down. So I'll give you a virtual hug. I think, Hannah, what you said is just that I'm so dang big and you're so dang small. I just like, you know.
Oh, he's so kind.
Yeah.
He's everything I need for my wounded self-esteem.
So for those of you in the chat who don't know, I'm 6'3" and I have to look up to Marc.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's true.
Everyone needs to look up to Marc, frankly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. So, well, let's welcome everyone here in the chat. We've got Janice, who says she'll be seeing Marc at the Pacific Northwest Wild something.
Oh, thank you so much, Janet. That's great. You know, let me, Hannah, if I can say, let me give a quick plug. This event is in Chehalis in Centralia, Washington, and it's basically organized by the Lewis County Historical Museum. Also, one of the main organizers is my good friend Mitch Moberg, who runs a shop called Bigfoot Treasure. And this thing started, this March 1st is going to be the first year for this. And as they're adding on speakers and as they're adding on vendors, it's a one-day event, but it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And suddenly all these really cool people are showing up. No, I'm not talking about me, but
Okay.
cooler people than me are showing up. So, yeah, I'm going to be looking forward to seeing you, Janet. And yeah, we'll be there. So I'm showing up as Marc Myrsell, the Ape Canyon, but also the Westport Aquarium, which is our other gig, is going to be representing as well.
Oh,
So
cool.
that's great. Thank you.
That's awesome.
All right, so we've got Renee and Mark in the house. We got Pappy and Raptor
And Doug. Hi,
and
Doug
Doug.
Morris.
Galen said it was negative 20.
It's
Yeah.
-20 in Baker City, Oregon.
I'm so glad I'm not complaining.
In
Yeah.
Baker City, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
They got Mr. Freezemeister there this year.
Yeah.
And he is not letting up. And
Yeah.
Stacy's in the house. Great. All right. So just before we get started, let's make sure you all like and share this. That's what really helps our views. Our watch time is up. Our number of views is up. So keep it up, folks.
Yeah.
You know, Sunday we'll have 1 million subscribers and 100 regulars.
Yeah.
That's what we want. Okay. So let's get into this. So do you want to just ask him the first important thing? What got you into Bigfoot?
Yeah. What got you into this Bigfoot world of craziness?
Well, I'm not gonna like start quoting years of when Hannah and Scott were born, but I'll start. I was born in 1966, right?
I'm older than you, buddy. 62.
Yeah, I know, obviously. Sorry. But the thing, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Oregon. I was born on the coast, and then my mom and dad, when I was 2, moved inland a little bit, about 30 miles south of Portland, Oregon. And I grew up in that age that we all talk about, where there was this pop culture resurgency, renaissance, if you will, in the unexplained. There were books, there were movies, there were TV shows, and I ate all that up. All of this pop resurgent in the unexplained dealt with like lights in the sky, the Nazca lines, pyramids, Atlantis, Bigfoot, monsters, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't realize until I got older how much of an effect that had on me, really. But for Bigfootery, I grew up, watching the PG film, Patterson Gimlin film, fascinated by it. But it wasn't until I was in the lower depths of the Dewey Decimal System at the public library at Fort Vancouver Library. It's 001s ish or so, where that's where that subject matter is. And I picked up a book. Was like, wow, this looks cool. And it was a book by Nick Redfern, who is mainly a UFO researcher, chupacabra researcher. But he does quite a wide variety of things. But one of his books was 3 Men Seeking Monsters. And this is when Nick was still living in England. And he and 2 buddies got into a van and went down through Devonshire and eventually to Cornwall to research a late 19th century story called The Man Monkey from the 1890s. And 3 Men Seeking Monsters is a great book, and it should be made into a movie. But it wasn't until later on in that book where Nick started to promulgate a couple of ideas. One, which is incredibly important, it's one that caught me, is that if you start to look around, you're researching something. You're researching high strangeness, lights in the sky or whatever. Nick promulgated, and I think John Fort did it as well, is that if you look around the general geographic area and you look around the general timeline, more often than not, if you're looking into lights in the sky, you will also find other weird stories of high strangeness. So that idea really, really caught me. And I purposely tested it out, where there were 2 stories in my files on my shelf. One was the 1924 Ape Canyon incident, and the other one was a series of events that happened down in Yamhill County, Oregon, around Sheridan, which are still going on. So I grabbed those two files off of it just to test Nick Redfern's idea. And sure enough, it panned out. As I started to look into it, there were other strange things going on these two stories. Well, the thing about Ape Canyon is that as the more I got into Ape Canyon, I knew about the Ape Canyon story my entire life through dramatizations like, Sasquatch Legend of Bigfoot and other things talking about Ape Canyon. What happened essentially was that, one opens the closet door where you've stuffed all your junk into, and it avalanches on top of you. That's what I found with the Ape Canyon incident. Prior to me getting into it, Ape Canyon would be written about just like in a small paragraph or two, maybe 2 or 3 pages in like books like Weird Washington or whatever. But I found starting to research this like I've never heard about it before, pretending like I've never heard about it before. There was this massive dearth of information regarding Ape Canyon that had really never been brought to light before. And it frankly became my midlife crisis, which is still going on at the age of 58, to research what really happened between the years of 1918 and 1924 regarding Fred and Marion Smith.
Cool.
So that my midlife crisis wasn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a much more traumatic midlife crisis, but we can talk about that later.
Okay.
So yeah, I had some other.
We've got questions. All right.
Yeah.
See, we got. All right, we're prepared tonight.
Oh,
Folks,
geez.
enjoy this because God knows this never happens.
Well-
So.
Well, I got
You got more?
I got one for you real quick.
Okay.
After we met in Pocatello, I think the next thing we were at was this 2003 Squatch Fest. I remember that. We were together.
Yep.
We are world renowned speakers, world renowned.
You guys are really important. Yeah. You guys are
That's why we've gone back never.
Yeah.
I guess,
So yeah, that was a lot of fun at that one. But I remember you being there, and you had this lady up on stage. I don't know if you can see her. Is she, if I remember correct, a relative, right? Of
that was a moment, Scott.
yeah,
That
it was,
a
wasn't it?
major moment that I had pre-planned, obviously. Who we're looking at is Mr. Neil Young on the left, of course, and no, and that in the red jacket, that's Betty Mitchell. The core group of miners who were there during the 1924 attack, the patriarch was Marion Smith, and his cousin, about a little bit older than Marion, Gabe Lefevre, his son-in-law, Fred Beck, and Leroy Perry Smith, and a family friend named John Peterson. The youngest of the crew was Leroy Perry Smith, and his son and daughter, Gary Smith and Betty, are still alive. So in Ape Canyon research, if I can expound and let it all hang out, one thing that's very, very important in historical research is that it is evidence, right? Document evidence, field evidence. In the orders of evidence, in federal case, in state case, there are orders of evidence. One of the greatest parts, one of the highest orders of evidence is parole evidence or parochial evidence. And it's verbal testimony where, say, there's a car crash and some guy just happens to be walking along. He doesn't know anybody in the car crash. He was just walking along going to the grocery store. When that guy says he saw what he saw and he provides that verbal evidence, that's parole evidence. And that's one of the higher orders of evidence. And so my point being is that stories are stories. Family stories are family stories. However, I've tracked down many of the family members, descendants of the original miners, to have them describe to me, what did your dad say? What did your grandfather say regarding the Ape Canyon incident? So fortunately, I was able to track down Betty, and through a weird set of research, but I was able to track her down. When I made my first call to Betty, I was chickening out. I was doing the cold call to an older woman from this weirdo long hair Sasquatch researcher. And I said, I'm doing a historical project that I think is your family. Is your grandfather Marion Smith and Leroy, and is your dad and Fred's your uncle? She called me back right away, and we started talking about her family. And sure enough, yeah, she's Leroy Perry Smith's daughter. Eventually, the cat got out of the bag, and she found out that I was doing Ape Canyon. And since then, we've become great friends. Her grandsons, great grandsons of Leroy, now we're great friends, and they've become integral to the Ape Canyon project as well. But at Squatch Fest, Betty and I decided to meet there, and I brought her on stage. And I remember that moment. It was a moment where I talked about everything that I talked about before, parole evidence and everything. And on the last 15 minutes of my talk, I was like, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Leroy Smith's daughter, Betty Mitchell. And there was this audible gasp that went across the audience. And I heard some guy in the back. He was like, holy crap. Oh my God. Betty came in. Betty is incredibly charming. She's incredibly sharp. I don't know how old she is. I think she's 75 or 78. But she was able to share for the audience some memories of her father regarding Sasquatch, and she's basically become a little bit of a Bigfoot celebrity herself, honestly.
That's awesome.
I wish I hadn't been stuck at the booth.
Yeah,
for that.
Hannah was stuck at the booth. I got to go see it. Yeah.
All right. So now I read a little blah 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 at the beginning of this, but can you give us well, I don't know. Which ones are appropriate here?
I don't know.
These are Chat GPT generated. This is what AI thinks we should ask you. I have gone down a demonic rabbit hole with that one, buddy.
Let's talk later about that. Yeah, okay.
All right. So we've already shared what happened at Ape Canyon. Basically, miners saw something, they shot, and then they fired back, and then we've got this whole altercation between these ape-like things and the miners. And the miners, they booked, they were out. Yeah. But why were you so keen on Ape Canyon?
Well, let me bore you folks with my historical background, my own professional, personal background. My dad was a land surveyor, Dick Myrsell in Northwest Oregon. And I grew up as a land surveyor. I have 3 older sisters, and I'm the only son. And my sisters helped Dad with land surveying a little bit, but it was at the time when the guy is the one that's going to be raised in the dad's profession. So I grew up as a land surveyor since I was like 10 or 12 years old. And so there is a thing, I'm going to get on a soapbox later about the future of Bigfoot's research. But the thing is about land surveying is that the first thing you do, you folks need to figure out where your property corners are. Well, how do you do that? You hire a land surveyor. The first thing that I do when you call me is that I do a tremendous amount of document research, looking for document evidence. What have previous surveyors done on or around your property? What have previous landowners done? I'm looking at all kinds of records, railroad records, highway records, anything that's going to help me to figure out where your property corners are. Then once I have that, hunk of paper, then I go out and I start looking for field evidence. A surveyor in 1912 says that he set a 1.5 inch iron pipe at a land corner. I have to go out and find that iron pipe and measure to it. So with measurements and doing the survey, I am comparing field evidence with document evidence. Document evidence is what they said that they did. How does the field evidence support that, or is in contrary to it? You know, I'm putting apples and oranges together to come up with a conclusion. So with those skills, I started applying that to Bigfoot research because I've always been fascinated with the unexplained.
Brilliant.
When I got to Ape Canyon in my life, I realized in short order that there could be a chance. This is, I don't know, 2010, 2011. There could have been a chance where this incident happened, the cabin and the mine, even though it's only about 1.5 miles from the center of the mountain that blew up, if you guys know that, even though it's only about 1.5 miles, it could have been spared from the eruption through this strange topographical coincidence. And so that's what started me down that road of trying to see if there was any physical field evidence left of the cabin and the mine where these miners were working their gold mine. And that it's just not Ape Canyon. I have like 5 gajillion other projects that are along the same lines, most of them monster related, where something happened. There could be a chance where there is some sort of physical evidence of the story. I don't care how old it is. Some of them, well, actually, Tom Shea, great guy out in Kentucky, gave me a news story from 1850 that he was like, here, find this about some sort of weird thing that happened out of San Francisco. But I feel that the projects that grab me the most is that if there is a scintilla of a chance that there could be some sort of field, something physical left behind that nobody has found before, that really grabs me. And so I go through the same process of document evidence and seeing out what's left out there in the field. And so basically Ape Canyon, that's how it started. Could the cabin still be there? Could there be evidence of the cabin? Could there be the mine and other physical attributes to this story? And I started looking for it.
Yeah, that's cool. I kind of went down that same rabbit hole, and I haven't went as far as you did, but I was trying to find all the information I could from the oh my gosh, his name, Albert Austin story.
Ostman.
Yeah. And I was wondering if he had, because somebody said that they had copies of his diary at one time, and you could backtrack from what he wrote of him coming out of the woods to find the location where he was held hostage. So that was something I always wanted to try to do, but I haven't got around to it yet.
You and I, that was one of the first projects, Scott, that you and I talked about.
Yeah.
And you have the contacts, you have the leads, and I don't. That's a hot lead. Regarding the Ostman incident, boy, until you can track down that diary, the Ostman incident is a little bit of a dead end, because what we have is, Ostman did sign an affidavit, and he was interviewed by John Green about what had happened, of course, 40 years prior, right? Also in 1924. But the problem was that Ostman was camping. He was basically grabbed in his sleeping bag by the Sasquatch-like creatures, dragged off, and then, he tricked the Sasquatch with a pinch of snuff in order to escape, and then made his way back to civilization. There are very few geographic references there in his story where there are a few, but it's going to be very, very hard to track down. I looked into it a little bit. Great researcher in the community, John Kirk III, did look into it as well. And, until we have more evidence, it's just going to be sitting as a campfire story unless we can find more evidence. So, Scott, you got to get on it and track down that diary.
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm going to this summer. I'm going back.
Are you
to Maine.
really?
Yeah.
Cool.
The guy who said he had the diary is in Maine, and I'm going to go sit down with him this summer. We're actually going to drive to Maine and check it out.
Oh, geez, I would love to come with you, but I probably can't. I would love. The interesting thing about your story about the Osmond diary, if I remember your story, is that it was Osmond's diary, but it was written in English, which I find very, very interesting. Yeah. Because that was not his first language, right? Right. So if he's writing in English, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's French Canadian, isn't he? Yeah.
No, I thought Osmond was Swiss or German.
Oh, Swiss or German.
I can't remember. I have to be corrected.
Which means he spoke both French and German and probably English.
Yeah.
Oh, Hannah, right on.
Yeah.
Good thinking.
Right. So all my family's. Yeah, all my family's Acadian French, from like Canada and Louisiana.
Speak English to this day.
Yeah,
God help us.
Yeah. Most of my family don't speak English still, so yeah, they got that Cajun French,
They're the hillbilly French.
Yeah, the hillbilly French.
So, all right, so we'll get to that in a minute. So. So how did the miners describe the creatures, and were there any key details that people often overlook?
Oh, you bet. We have to deal with two sets of relics regarding what happened. What most people know is from Fred Beck's book that he wrote with his son, Ronald Arnie Beck, a booklet called I Fought the Ape Man in Mount St. Helens. And if I remember that right, that came out in 1967. Fred had not been back to the site ever in those 40 years. And he did once. It was just a week directly following the attack in 1924. But he had never been back up there. But he wrote this book, strongly encouraged by one of his three sons, the youngest son, Ronald. And that's what we know at first about the whole Ape Canyon incident. When you read the book about Fred's book, I have to say, Fred's book is a little bit disparaged, too much, that I don't think is justified, because the first part of the book talks about what happened up at Ape Canyon from the very beginning in 1918. The second part of the book is more of Fred's opinions. I think it's mainly Ronald, his son's opinions about how we as humans, how Bigfoot fall into a larger cosmology in our existence, in our universe, right? A lot of this had to deal with Ronald's views at the time. And mind you, Fred was, in his later life, he was a faith healer, spiritualist, if you want to call it. Had seances and all that kind of stuff at his house in Kelso, Washington, which is kind of interesting, because I understand that Fred was mainly Lutheran and was just a hard-working, mill-working guy, logger fellow, but he became a spiritual healer. And actually, talking about Betty, who we talked about previously, she witnessed her dad, Leroy, at Fred's house, at her uncle's house, with Fred's hands on her dad and healing him, a very interesting cat. Anyway, my point being is that we have Fred's book, but when you take the first part of Fred's book and you compare it with the interviews that were published at the time directly following the attack in 1924, what Fred described in his book mainly holds up. There are a few small differences when you read the 1924 newspaper articles. All of the miners were interviewed, some at length, some very, very small interviews. But all of the information that Fred described does hold true to what I found in the previous newspaper articles, right? So again, we have to compare apples and oranges about what Fred said in 1967 compared with what they really said in 1924.
Sure.
Cool.
That's enough time to fabricate history right there.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Sure.
yeah,
So we have to
take a quick
take
break.
a quick little break, and then when we
Yeah.
get back, I want to talk about you finding the site and some of the cool stuff I've seen that's in Cliff's. It has to do with a piece of wire in Cliff's museum.
There's a lot of, oh my goodness, there's a lot of cool stuff. But anyway, yeah, let's get into that after the break.
All right, let's do this.
All right, what are we advertising tonight?
Oh.
Are we advertising us or are we advertising Elon Musk?
Well, let's advertise Elon Musk.
Okay. Imagine having high-speed internet no matter where you are. With Starlink, that dream is now reality. No more buffering, lag, or limited access. Starlink connects you to ultra-fast, reliable internet anywhere on Earth. From seamless streaming to intense gaming and productivity, Starlink empowers you to do it all. And here's the best part. Sign up using our exclusive link and get your first month free. Don't miss out on the future of internet. Click the link in our description to get started today. Starlink, revolutionizing internet, one connection at a time. Join now. All right, all of you Squatch watchers, here's what's coming up in Squatch American news.
Yeah.
First of all, we missed our window of being able to get free money from the government because they're shutting that all down.
Yeah.
Second of all, we are headed in just a few months to the Wisconsin Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention. This sounds like a high strangeness hoopty-law.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. We will be joining Stacy Brown, Miranda Young, Chad Lewis, Angela Zabel, and Barnaby and his Caps crew.
And-
I said all of them.
Yeah, and I said, and by the way, Barnaby's going to be on the show next week with us.
Yes, so don't miss next week's show because Barnaby is coming back in the house. But anyway, this is going to be a fabulous one-day event. And hey,
So
look at that.
What's happening with Wild Squatch?
With Wild Squatch
Wellness.
Wellness. Okay, here's the thing, folks. Here's the thing. Not everything is available on YouTube. So you want to go to wildsquatchwellness.com at least and sign up for our newsletter. But here's the thing. The Squatch Off insect repellent will be going on sale, as in available for purchase 1 week from today. We are starting manufacturing as soon as we have enough money to do so. And so we will be starting our Indiegogo funding campaign a week from today. There are going to be several tiers from buying one bottle.
Pre-sales.
Pre-sales. So the product will be available for purchase next week, and we will ship it out in May, right at the start of bad bug season.
Yep.
So you're going to want to keep your eyes open. We will send it out in the email. We will have it up on social media, all the things. But you can buy anywhere from 1 to 10 bottle packs, and each different level of support for this project comes with a different a different prize package because you get your bug spray and prizes too. How many of you want a prize? I'll give you a prize, and it'll be more than that ugly Cracker Jack tattoo that just washed off in the sprinkler.
Okay, and we got an announcement. As you know, we're part of the TFO, the
Fallen Outdoors.
the Fallen Outdoors, where we take veterans out, combat
Squatching.
veterans squatching and Gold Star family members. And we have a trip in Wisconsin coming up May 30th to June 1st.
Thank you, Lee, for helping us set
Yeah,
this
thank
up.
you, Lee, for getting that all together.
We got people in Team Wisconsin wondering how they joined the Bigfoot division and why didn't anyone tell them
There
that
was
TFO had a Bigfoot division.
So what we're doing is we set it up to have the veterans show up, but we're going to have space available. So if anybody who's in the
Great Lakes area,
the northern Great Lakes area or northern Wisconsin area, who wants to maybe join up with us that weekend, also
you're welcome.
you're welcome to email us, and if we have slots open, I will do a first come first serve thing on that. So so email us at squatchamerica@gmail.com.
And it should be bug season up there, so we will have Squatch Off insect repellent available on site as well. Actually, that event, the Barnaby's event, the High Stranges Soup de la.
Yeah, we'll have it there.
That is going to be the physical premiere of the product. It'll be on our table at our booth.
All right.
So, but you save money if you buy it off of our Indiegogo campaign.
There we go. So now back to your
more
regular scheduled program. All right.
So on the on the placard for Wild Squatch Wellness,
Yes.
Up in the upper left-hand corner, there was a photo of a very beautiful young woman. Who is that? Is that you?
That's me.
Really? Wow. You clean up, Hannah. You clean up pretty damn well.
I do.
Yeah.
Holy
that is
smokes.
That is what my inner domestic goddess looks like. She's trying to break free.
Yeah.
Dang, man.
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, Scott, I'm happily married because I was like, wow, what a babe.
Yeah.
Damn.
Maybe I should
That's
get
funny.
extensions in my hair and
There
get
you
there
go.
faster. I'm telling you, that demon AI can make you look exactly how you want
Oh,
to look.
dang.
Yeah.
It can
Cool.
take 100 pounds off of you overnight.
Dang. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
he's
do
gonna
that.
show it.
I'm going to do this. Okay. I got a picture of her in college.
Oh, yeah, I got to see that.
Oh, come on.
No.
Focus.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. That was Hannah in
How-
college.
Hannah, how did you get from that photo to the Wild Squatch Wellness photo? Because
Yeah.
that one you're a disco queen, and the next thing is like you're
This
like
is-
a folk singing hippie.
Yeah.
Well, this is my Marilyn Monroe days, and I want to put a 1 in the chat, ladies. If you ever grace the sacred halls of glamour shots.
Glamour shots.
Oh,
I mean, does this scream 1980s culture or what?
Yeah.
sure. Did
Yeah.
you have that photo taken at Sears?
No,
It was at Glamour Shots.
it was
It
at
was their thing.
glamour
Oh,
shots.
glamour shot. Oh, really?
Yeah. In the Del Amo Mall in Torrance, California. And I tell you what, I think I went into about 2 years of debt over that. 'Cause it's like, this is worth my gold card that I don't have money to pay for because I was just a broke college student. But anyway,
That's great.
so here's the thing. And this is just a little brief reprieve. So how did I get to the folk singing? Well, first of all, I love folk music. My favorite music is the folk indigenous music of any culture. And that's what I taught my choir students back in the day. My mother said that if I'd been born in the 50s instead of like late 60s, that I would have been sitting on a stool with my guitar singing protest songs rather than playing Mozart on the piano. But
Yeah.
so
Me
I've
too.
always had like this element, but actually what took me to Wild Squatch Wellness and this whole, it really is a crunchy granola sort of movement. It has been our Bigfoot journey. And
Good.
and on my blog, I'll send you a link to that website, but
Yeah.
on my blog it tells the story. And when I was ripped out of my city life of whatever, and we hit the road, it was the woods that healed me. And it I mentioned a horrible midlife crisis, and it brought me out of that. And it just, everything in nature set me straight.
People do not, well, maybe we sound old or erudite or something, but a lot of folks these days don't understand what wilderness is all about. Being out in the woods 5 to 20 miles from your truck and the sun's going down, and you may be able to make it back out to your truck in the dark, but maybe not. And you just have to be out there. And it is an incredible, incredible experience. Even if you just do it for one night, but multiple nights are even better, where you have to make sure you got water, make sure you got food, make sure you're warm. It is an incredible, incredible experience that too many people don't experience anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
And what I have found, and you could not have said this any way I could understand until about 5 years ago. But every day that I continue this life, the more I swear it's almost a preachy thing, is every question anyone ever has, anything that's confusing, anything that has you wondering, you go into nature and you'll get your answers. If you want to find truth, go to nature. If you want to cut through the noise of what you're seeing on the news, what you're hearing from this source and that, go out into the woods, sit down, shut up and listen. Because every answer you ever need for anything will come in that silence. And it just gives me chills. And it literally, the woods put me back together. So there's my little testimony. And that's what eventually created Wild Squatch Wellness.
Yeah, and I kind of go along with that because I was raised by hillbillies, Cajuns, and when I was a kid, 12, 13 years old, I'd come home from school on Friday. I'd grab my sleeping bag, my 22 rifle, and walk into the woods, and I'll tell my parents I'll see you Monday, see you Sunday night, so I can go to school on Monday, and they would let me do it. It would just
That's good. That's good. I had a client actually along Lewis River Road towards Ape Canyon outside of Woodland, Washington, and he told me Jay's like 75 getting on, but he said, I knew his dad, and he said that if his dad came home and saw you sitting on the couch watching TV, then there was hell to pay. His dad was like, you get off the couch, stop watching TV, and go outside and do something. They lived in a rural area, and Jay did. And Jay is still out there doing wild hiking, hunting with his dog and stuff. So getting out in the wilds is something that fate is trying to divorce us from, but I am abject warrior against it. You need to get outside.
Okay, so speaking of getting outside, you got outside all the way to the site of the cabin. Tell us about finding the cabin site.
And how do you know it was the site? Because that did come up as a question
in the chat just a second ago.
So tell us.
I don't know how much time we have, because I could expound about this for like 3 hours.
I know.
You know what? I think our audience will be fine if we go long.
Okay. I'll try to keep this short. My first trip after what I had previously talked about. You know, what I had previously talked about was grabbing a hunk of document evidence and then going out and looking for the field evidence of what the document evidence said. But it wasn't that clear as I'm going out in the woods and up on Mount St. Helens and trying to find this thing. More document evidence is coming out, and so I'm grabbing that information and looking for that in the field as well, you know, during the same time. But my first trip up there was in November, which was stupid, of 2011, because there's way too much snow coming down at that time. You have to understand that this is nearly at the timberline on the east flank of Mount St. Helens.
Yep.
And elevation is roughly around 4,500 feet or so. And that is an actual, that's an interesting point to consider. The incident in 1924, these guys, these miners could not stay there year round.
Right.
They could in theory, but I mean, all you'd be doing is surviving. You would not be working the mine because there's just a bunch of snow that falls, you know. So it was a seasonal gig. And besides that, this was not a full-time commercial mine. These guys had their regular jobs back in town in Kelso, Longview, and they were just going up there when they could to work this mine. So at first in 1922, they were just tent camping at the base of Pumice Butte. I'm going to use my hands. There's Mount St. Helens over here, and it comes on down into a flat called the Plains of Abraham, and then it goes up Pumice Butte and then down to the mine about 1,000 feet from the peak of Pumice Butte, going down in there. So they were just tent camping at first in 1922. At the end of 1923, they were starting to get assays out of the mine where there was gold there and was worth keeping going on it. So they decided at the end of 1923, when we return in spring, we are going to build a cabin right at the mine, or as close as we can to the mine, a formidable cabin enough to like hold our stores, hold our tools, hold our stuff, where we don't have to like hike it back and forth the 6 miles back to the truck, back to Spirit Lake every year. When they returned, that's what they did. They built a cabin down there. So when I first started to get into this project, looking at the document record, this is just outside of an established mining district. At the time, the United States government had these set boundaries of mining districts. This was just outside of it. So because of that, they didn't have to file a map. They didn't have to provide a really distinct description of where the mine was. It was just basically a rather nebulous set of clues about where the mine was and where the cabin was. The thing that happened to make me 99% sure, convinced of finding what I had found, was that directly after the July 10th, 1924 attack on the cabin, it spread like wildfire in the press. They got back to their truck on that Friday morning, went down back to Kelso, Longview, and what did they do that I would do? I'm going to get a drink. And they went to the bar, the Blue Ox Tavern, talked to the bartend. I know this because a great researcher in the Bigfoot community, John Pickering, knows the family that ran the Blue Ox Tavern, and that's still in their family history themselves. They talk about still that time when Grandpa talked about that day on Friday when the miners came in and started telling their story of mountain devils, 8 men up on Mount St. Helens. So when that story got out, it showed up in the Longview Daily News the next day in Saturday. So we had the Associated Press wire. At the time, it was pretty new, and it spread like wildfire all over the western states. And it showed up in a lot of newspapers of these men getting attacked by ape men, by mountain devils, right?
Mhm.
So fortunately, other reporters got that word through the AP wire, and they started contacting the miners. They started contacting the Forest Service rangers. And the following week after the attack, different reporters went up to the site, went up to talk to the miners at their homes in Kelso Longview. There was one in particular, and it was a fellow named Jack Gregory, LT Gregory, who was a sports reporter for the Oregonian in Portland, Oregon. And he didn't interview any of the miners, but he published a 2-part series, one on Saturday and one on Sunday, about a week and a half after the attack. And he went up there. He picked up the deputy sheriff, Charles Dunbar, and his son, and went up to Spirit Lake, parked the car, went down the trail to Pumice Butte, up Pumice Butte, and down to the cabin site. And he described what he saw in his journey down to the cabin site, and he spent the night down there. Gregory kind of wrote it in a I don't know how to say this, like aggrandized narrative, like going out into the wilds of Africa and the Pacific Northwest, down to the cabin site where there are these ape men. But what Gregory did is that he provided me clues. No map, hardly any description, but he gave me clues about how he went down the trail, up Pumice Butte, down Pumice Butte, and he described it in his 2-part article. On top of that, we do have the mining record that described where the mine was. The mine was described in the county record, and it said that the mine, it gave a brief description of the mine being on the north side of Ape Canyon. And it said that from the mine, there about 30 feet above it, there is the mining location notice, the wooden sign posted to the tree saying, hey, this is the Vendor White mine. This is our mine, buzz off. This is our claim. It also described an iron dike. Now, in the mining record, it describes an iron dike, but at the time, I didn't know what an iron dike was. And I'm not a geologist, but I did find out what an iron dike was briefly. This is where you have a bunch of basalt from volcanoes, and it's the underlying rock that comes up through cracks in the basalt. And there's a distinctive brown, reddish brown stuff across this black, dark rock. And that's what an iron dike is. I can't guarantee that the miners at the time knew what an iron dike was, but it was specified in their mining claim. So after about 5 or 6 or 7 trips, I got to that point where I knew I was close. And we had at the time the Oregonian photos taken by Jack Gregory of the cabin. He gave us 2 photos of the cabin at the time in 1924. Now we have much better photos of the cabin. Mm-hmm. But at the time, you could see the cabin that Gregory photographed. And in the foreground, you could see the stumps of the trees that the miners had cut down in order to build the cabin. Well, when you cut down the stump, the tree starts bleeding sap, and it really, really preserves that stump. Stumps can last a very, very, very long time out in nature because it was bleeding sap as a preservative. Mm-hmm. I talked with the Gifford Pinchot National Forest archaeologist, and he verified that that area had never been logged. It was way too precipitous for it to be logged. When you get down to that site, it's true. You can find very large trees, like 8-foot diameter Douglas fir, that are still standing that survived the eruption. I knew that if I could start finding stumps, I knew I would be close. So in 2013, at the third week of June, I made it down there, and there was only one member of my party that went down there with me that was courageous enough to follow my stupid ass down there. And great guy, Gabriel Temi. And we're fighting the vine maple. We're kind of close. And Gabriel is like, Marc, I can't even see him. He's like 50 feet away from me, but I can't see him through the vine maple. And he's like, Marc, I found a stump. I follow him down there. We find another stump. We find another stump. We find another stump. Break out the metal detector. And that's where we found the evidence left behind. You have to be there. So many people that I've taken down there have told me this is not what I expected. I thought I was just going to go out in the woods and find a cabin.
You're right. Yeah, no.
This is one of the most dangerous, craziest places in order to start a mine, much less build a cabin. But what we've started at my first hit with my metal detector was a piece of baling wire. We found a spoon. We started finding nails. And then we found nails underground, about 4 or 6 inches underground, along a horizontal log and a corner of a log, with the nails still driven into it diagonally. And then we had realized with the spoon and the wire and everything that we found the cabin site.
That's
And
pretty awesome.
all these clues from Gregory and the mining report and other people that had been down there, suddenly it all made sense. This is what we're talking about. We found just below that, we found this huge hunk. You can see it today, this huge hunk of orange face along the basalt. That's what they were talking about the Iron Dike, just right next to the Iron Dike. So basically, that's when we knew in 2013 that we had found the cabin site. But then 2024 happened, and 2023 happened, and that's when the mine was found. Exactly where it was described in relationship to the cabin.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have said in the past, oh, well, you found a cabin. How do you know you found the Ape Canyon cabin? And it's like, well, dude, I will take you down there, but it's not until you get there where you realize, yeah, this is the only chance of this being the Ape Canyon cabin, because all of the document evidence, all the field evidence, it all comes together. It all starts making sense.
Yeah, that is so cool. It's kind of the thing,
I was going to say that's real archaeology.
That's real archaeology. Yeah. Cause that's what I did. I'm an anthropologist, and I've worked on a lot of archaeological digs. And, when you start finding pieces that fit, that's when you start finding stuff. And one of the things I thought was really cool, and as an archaeologist myself, was when I went into Cliff's museum, and there was that piece of wire, but you had a photo of it that was from when I don't remember. Daisy. So
wait, do you have a Squatch outside your camper? What's
we
going
do.
on, man?
We have Daisy protecting us from the
neighbors' dogs,
from the Australian shepherds and the pugs and the poodles out there.
Yeah, I got to tell you something, Scott, about that wire.
Okay.
That photo. Okay, so that photo is part of a collection of photos, and that photo was taken a week after the attack. none of the miners, particularly the older miners,
Uh-huh.
Marion and Gabe and John Peterson, we were like, we don't care how much gold is up there because their assays, by the record, were getting quite good. They were getting good assays for gold out of that mine. And they were like, I don't care how much gold is coming out of that mine. We're never going back up there. Two of the youngest, Fred Beck, who was in his 30s, and Leroy Perry Smith, who was 19 or 20 at the time, they were convinced to go back up there to take Forest Service Rangers up there, along with two sets of reporters. And when they were up there, that's when that photo was taken with the baling wire, with the wire in it. But I have to tell you, I got to tell you, you think that a project is done. Any good research project, no matter what it is never done. It is never, ever done, ever.
Right.
And so it was a year and a half ago where on Facebook, there's a Facebook page talking about Mount St. Helens before the eruption. And somebody posted something. And here's some great photos from granddaughters of the Forest Service Rangers when they were building the Mount St. Helens Fire Lookout. Those two rangers in that photo are Ape Canyon Story Forest Rangers, Bill Welch and Jim Huffman. They're integral to the story. So I contacted the Facebook administrator, put me in contact with the person that posted these photos. It turned out Sandy Moyer is her name. Wonderful woman. She's the great grandniece of Bill Welch, the Forest Service Ranger who the miners first talked to when they came off the mountain. So I contacted Sandy. Hey, I'm Marc. I'm the biggest Ape Canyon nerd in the world. And she was like, I know exactly what story you're talking about. And in her family photo album that had never been seen by the public ever were photos of when the Rangers went up there the week after the attack. And at first, these photos are so clear. I thought they were AI. I thought they were generated. But I talked to photo friends of mine, and they're like, no, this is the real deal. And so that photo of Leroy and Fred inside the cabin with the baling wire, there are about 24 other photos taken during that trip right after the attack with Fred and Leroy at the cabin site. But that one photo, at first I found that baling wire. That was my first hit. And I thought it was just a baling wire to put roof shakes together or whatnot. And I, kept it. And it wasn't until actually just about 3 years ago, two or 3 years ago, that I was holding that wire in my hand. And I was looking at the photo with my friend Brad, who has been with me on every single Ape Canyon trip. And we're like, holy smokes. That wire is in that 1924 photo. And it was just a wire to go over the fireplace and hook your coffee pot onto it. Mm-hmm. It's like, dang, that is real evidence. That is real field evidence. That photo was taken a week after the attack, and you can see that wire. You can count the curlicues in it of it being twisted, and you can look at the wire itself, and it's like, dang, that's the same thing. Like Cliff said recently, Cliff Barrickman at the North American Bigfoot Center said recently, it's like holding Abraham Lincoln's hat. Only cooler.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Wow. Okay. So
we're about 4 minutes over.
Oh well. I don't care.
Sorry.
So let's talk about this on a personal level. What was the most surprising thing that you learned about this whole Ape Canyon thing? What's something that just really blew your socks off?
I'm going to talk about myself, And I'm going to talk about Betty Mitchell's grandsons, Leroy Perry Smith's
Okay.
great grandsons. The thing that blew my mind, and it still blows my mind to this day, was on the third week of June of 2013, where Gabriel and I were down at the cabin site, and it sure seemed to line up again. Not 100% sure, 99% sure that we'd found the cabin. Got back down to the parking lot after that weekend, and I'm driving home. This can't be real. It's like a dream. It's like I'm dreaming. This can't be real. How is it possible? In 2013, which was roughly about 90 years, 89 years after the attack, how could I possibly come up with this evidence? It can't be real. It's nonsense. After people have been looking for it for years, for decades, it can't be real. And I still feel to this day, it's like, this can't be real. I feel like my huge, like 4 to 5 inch thick file supports that. And it's like, no, it's not a dream. The cabin site has been found. In 2023, on the 99th anniversary, I was up there. I was again up there this last year on the 100th anniversary. What had happened is that I went up there with Cliff and Keith, who's associated with the NABC, Brad, of course, and me, and the Mitchells, the great grandsons of Leroy, were going to join us. They couldn't make it, but they wrote to me about a week later, and they said, "Hey, no, we're going up now. We're going up in July. We're going. Actually, no, it was August, and we're going to go up. Can you give us directions to the cabin?" And mind you, I do not hand out directions to the cabin because it's a historically protected site, and it is listed on the historical resources list for the Forest Service. But I gave them directions because it's their story, their family. They deserve to go down to the cabin site. Well, these guys are like 23 years old and have the energy of a 15-year-old. These guys are incredibly energetic. I've been up there on the mountain with them as well. And it's like, people think I'm incredibly reckless and dangerous. Dang, these Mitchell bros, they're incredibly reckless. Like, stop, slow down. But they were up there for that weekend, and they went up and down that slope 3 times in one weekend. I can only do it once in a weekend. Yeah. It's crazy. But they went up and down, and that's like, oh, now I understand Marc's directions. Now I understand Marc's directions because now they realize they're at the cabin site. Everything fits together just like I did 10 years prior. Oh, now we're at great grandpa's cabin, you know. Well, let's go a little bit further. It's from the cabin site, it gets even more dangerous. And the thing is that I had gone down off of the bluff, off of the cut, to go to try to find the mine. I did this 2 or 3 times, and I realized I was within about 25 feet, 50 feet of the mine, but you don't see it unless you're exactly right on top of it. You just can't see it from the cabin site. I had been down there a bunch, but Jake Mitchell just went a little bit further, and they found the mine. And when they wrote back to me, I was like, you guys, tell me when you're back home so I know you're safe, because I'm responsible for sending you up there, and I need to know if I need to like haul your butts out of there. But he wrote back, and he sent me a picture, and we found this. And he sent me a picture of a hole in the rock. And I was like, dang, they found the mine. Right. And at first, I was like, crap, I was within 25 feet, man.
Yeah, it's usually how it works.
That lasted about 2 or 3 seconds, but after that and today, I am thrilled. It's their story. It's their family history that's really important. And I'm glad they were the three dudes who found the
Yeah,
line.
absolutely.
Great grandfather's mine. And
That's
so
awesome.
they describe the same thing. Even today, even a year and a half later, they're like, this seems like a dream. How can it be possible that we found our great grandfather's gold mine that was attacked by Sasquatch?
Yeah.
And to answer, that was a long answer, Hannah, but that's the one thing that has blown my mind the most. It's like, after 100 years, how can this possibly happen? But it did. We found it.
All right. That's awesome. So I had one last thing for you. Earlier on, you said you wanted to talk about the future of Bigfooting. You said you had a rant.
I do. It's a
And
soapbox.
go.
And I think Scott, well, actually, Scott and Hannah, both of you are professionals. And I'm going to try to do this briefly. Just interrupt me, but come on in, because both of you are professionals with huge amount of experience. You know, I still feel like I'm the new guy in Sasquatch research. There have been people who have been doing this forever.
Yeah, me
And
too. Yeah.
when I was very graciously invited to start speaking and talking to other people in the Bigfoot research community, because frankly, people just went ape shit over Ape Canyon and started inviting me.
That sounds like a book title.
Yeah.
That's true. I've gotten to know primatologists. I've gotten to know microbiologists. I've gotten to know a lot of people with much bigger brains than me, right? The thing is that I've come to realize is that prior to, say, our new age of Bigfoot research, people were sort of doing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
Casting tracks, taking photos, whatever. And I'm not saying that has gotten us nowhere, but it's gotten kind of us to a stopping point. I am not a big proponent, well, maybe I am, of being recognized by this erudite academic scientific community. I really don't care.
Mhm.
But I think that an avenue that could get us there, but it's also an avenue that is going to provide a lot of more information to the research database. I've realized that every one of us, I don't care if you're IT, I don't care if you're a plumber, a carpenter, if you're an anthropologist, whatever, everybody has a set of skills. Academic or experience-wise, everybody has a set of skills. You may also be interested in the Sasquatch phenomenon. And you can take those skills, like I did, land surveyor, you guys, and apply those skills, whether you're a plumber or whatever, to researching Bigfoot.
Yes.
And I think that is the future of Bigfoot, where you have so many people coming in who is interested in the Sasquatch phenomenon, who are bringing their different skills in. Some, I'm just the historical research guy because I'm a land surveyor, bringing their skills in. And I think that's the future of it. It's like, okay, you know, some guy tells a story and he has a research project. And it's like, oh, well, you have a research project and you just told a story. Wait a minute. No, I'm an archaeologist. I'm a brain surgeon. I am this. I'm applying my skills, your good research skills, to this subject. And I think that is the new future of Sasquatch research.
Yeah, I
He's
totally.
our people.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. You know, because I came in to this, you know, knowing the history, you know, a little bit, this and that and the other thing. But what got me into this whole thing was me working with 75 tribes. You know, as a Native American cultural anthropologist, I've worked with 75 tribes in my career, and every single one of them has a Bigfoot legend, you know, and they're all different. And then my kind of expertise was in pictographs and petroglyphs, and I picked
Oh,
something
that's
out.
right. I forgot. That's right. You did tell me that. Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, when we're at the festivals and I'm doing my talk, I picked something out of that famous Bigfoot photo and from California, the pictograph, the hairy man pictograph. It's on the front of Kathy Strain's book. That one there.
Yeah.
I picked something out of there that nobody had picked out before, because that's what I did. I could, no, I can't say exactly, this is what I'm talking about, but I can say that, there's these two symbols down at the bottom of the thing that nobody really paid attention to because it had nothing to do with Bigfoot. But these two symbols are very important in my brain because they're symbols of atlatls,
which dates the pictograph.
Because
Exactly.
they switched to using bows about 2,500 years ago. So is this pictograph older than 2,500 years? It's just
Right
something to
on.
think about. Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
on.
So, and stuff like that. And then when we're out here and we do a lot of interviews with people and what we've been doing lately, by the way, is we've actually been going to reservations and working with the tribes and doing basically town hall meetings with tribal members. We just spent a couple of weeks with the Mescalero Apache in New Mexico, and they've got Bigfoot lessons,
Yeah.
And when Hannah comes in, her psychology background is she's trained in forensic interviewing. So that's what I let her sit down and talk to people, So,
Sure.
so I totally agree with what you're saying. We need to all kind of get together,
I think honestly, when you have a phenomenon like Bigfoot that is still so wide open for discovery, when we can come together as an interdisciplinary community. And
good word. Oh my God, great phrase. Yes.
I know.
That's good.
She knows all the big words.
I know people who know bigger words than I do. I just want to punch them in the face because I talk English. But anyway, but it's true. It's true. We've all got.
Yeah, Jeff Meldrum. Okay, just
Yeah.
I respect Jeff.
I do
his
too.
Presentation on Bigfoot paraphernalia.
Genitalia.
I know. But interdisciplinary community. That's great.
Yes. Well, and that's what Amy Buey's little thing. That's what Project Zoo Book is all about. Which we've got to get back to.
Yeah.
We went once. And it's like, oh my gosh, those Thursday nights.
I feel guilty. I feel guilty because I haven't shown up there for a while. But yeah, he invites me every month.
Yeah, me too.
By the time the Thursday night rolls around, it's like I've had such a day. I just want to go to bed. But anyway, I think too, we have got in this day of generative artwork. In this day when I can type a prompt into my sweet friend ChatGPT and it can generate something so effing realistic, we have got to get away from our reliance on things like prints and photos, and because we have to, because I'm sorry, Patty is not going to happen again. That was that was like a quantum miracle.
Maybe I don't know. Two things. You and I, Hannah, are so much on the same page, no pun intended. What I'm talking about are paper archives.
Yes.
Paper, except for clay and stone, paper is one of the most enduring medias preserving our culture. My heroes, my biggest heroes in my life are archivists and librarians because they preserve our culture. And most of that preservation happens on paper. And it's amazing how much of that stuff disappears so quickly. It's not, it's all on the internet. It's all on the internet. Well,
Yeah.
if it's been digitized or not. But no, we need to preserve our paper archives because that's our record.
Which means we have got to take story very seriously.
True.
If you
Mhm.
did not take the family story, the family history seriously, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
and there are a lot of, God bless them, there are Bigfoot researchers out there who don't give a shit about the stories.
That is true. My not well, yeah, it was the weirdest 5 seconds of my life. My road crossing that I had of two individuals shooting out and across the road from me. First thing I did when I got back, like that night, I sketched out what I saw. And then the following week, I wrote a narrative affidavit,
Mm-hmm.
signed it, and had my signature notarized. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we look back, Scott, we were talking about Albert Osman.
Mhm.
He signed an affidavit. Sure. A lot of people say, oh, those are stories, and stories are great, but we're looking for
Evidence.
physical evidence, casts or whatever. But what holds up the most when we look back in history, when we look back just a few years ago, what holds up the most is a signed affidavit. And that's why I did what I did, to write down an affidavit of what I saw. I'm going to be dead. I did other stuff for my road crossing as well on site, but I'm trying to monument what happened to me. Sure, it was just a road crossing. Everyone has road crossings. Everyone's seen Bigfoot, but I wrote out an affidavit and I signed it and had it notarized to provide that to the database to make that story down, right? I'm not saying I'm Albert Osman or anything, but I was just trying to do what a good researcher would do, providing that affidavit for other folks in the future, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. And the other thing that I like to think that I add to this weird puzzle, because I've said it before, I don't think I ever in my life thought that a minister turned social worker turned choir teacher would ever have anything to add to the Bigfoot community.
Well, hey, exactly what I was talking about. You have
Right?
a skill set. You have a skill set.
But the skill that I have is, how did that crossing change you as a person? Because that's where the reality comes. It's like, this encounter did something, and I am not the same that I was 2 minutes before it happened. And
You bet.
that
You bet.
it is qualitative, it is subjective, it is personal, but that is where we get all the good questions. When we put all these stories together, then we start knowing what questions to ask. And that
That's
is where
true.
that's where real research begins. When you ask the right question.
That's the truth. One of the most profound moments that happened to me, I was at a conference and we're just outside after, sort of like right after the conference, drinking coffee, smoking cigarettes and stuff, all the Bigfoot researchers and stuff. And there's a guy sort of hanging out on the periphery. And we're talking, and he comes a little bit closer, and he comes a little bit closer, and he's from Seattle. And he was 45 years old. And he specifically came to that conference to connect, to try to find that safe space where he could tell his story. And I was hanging around with like big names in the Bigfoot research community, friends who I really, really admire, and he tells a story about something that happened to him around Seattle when he was 14 years old. And Randall's, he asked one of the greatest questions. And I was like floored by his question. Derek did not ask any questions during this guy's story, But at the end of this guy's story, Derek asked him, would you be interested in like recording your story either on audio or a video? And the guy was like, no, I just wanted to find a safe space for my story. And it's like, damn, that was a great question. That was a damn good question. And it was like, I was floored by that. I'm not a good interviewer. I've learned a little, I'm getting better about interviewing, but yeah, it's these stories. I think like I said before, parole evidence, these are stories. And, I didn't intend for this to happen to me, but I know what happened to me, and people tell their stories.
Well, we are going to have to call it quits in just a few minutes, but I wanted to give a very special shout out to someone here in Bridgeport, Texas. And you can have the best encounters at a washateria, at a laundromat. And we met two amazing Bigfoot enthusiasts here in Bridgeport. Their names are Cooper and Isaiah, and Isaiah is in the chat tonight, and he's been saying hello. I'm here. I think they're about 13 years old. And Isaiah is with us tonight, and I just wanted to welcome Isaiah. Scott got a chance to sit down with them and talk about Bigfoot and encourage these young souls to just keep exploring and keep stay curious. And I just wanted to welcome Isaiah to our channel, to our Squatch American community. And so anyway, yes, we see you, Isaiah. We see all your comments, and we're so glad you're here.
Hey, Hannah, can I give the last point for this one? I know that we're getting out of here, but this is for Cooper and Isaiah. Truly. I'm the historical research guy, and it doesn't matter. You have a research project and you are so certain of what you saw. You are so certain of the evidence that you've collected. You are so certain of it. Limit that to 99% sure. Just 99% sure, because I've had so many times in my land surveying career where it's like people walk in through the door and it's like, Marc, you did a great job and I really respect your work, but here's another piece of evidence, and I don't think you considered that. And I just sit on my butt. Why didn't I see this before? Of course, they're right. You have to leave your door open every dang day for that new person to walk through with new evidence. And that's what keeps this going. So absolutely. For everybody, keep on pushing it, finding new evidence, and kick these old guys in the butt. Like, you didn't sure, but I have new evidence. Could you consider that? And these old guys may throw you out the door, but good old guys would be like, holy crap, you're right. I didn't even think about this. I didn't even consider this. And that's the way that this subject is going to keep on going for research.
Yes, and that is, I think, our foundation at Squatch America is everybody has a piece of the puzzle. Everybody. And they have something they can contribute, and actually it's the exploration that's the exciting part. And a lot of us hope that the conclusion is never actually reached. Just let's keep that 1% available,
absolutely,
so that we can keep the journey going. What would we do if it was solved?
I don't know.
We're already broke, so we wouldn't go broke.
You tell me about it. I know.
So it's one of the things I even have it at the end of my presentations I do at the festivals. Is one of my favorite Bigfooters of all time is Davis Perry. I don't know if you're familiar with that name. Davis was an old miner, lived in Carson, Washington. and
Yep.
he was in the Gifford Pinchot National Forest, and but he had created this cutout of what he saw, this
Yeah,
giant life-size cutout
you
with
know.
this
Yeah, I know that one. Yep.
yeah, with this incredible, ridiculous cone head that goes, 2 feet above the,
Right.
yeah. And one of the things I've seen some of the old videos of him talking, and he said if it doesn't have a cone head, it's not a Bigfoot, and but what I point out is that was Datus's piece of the puzzle. That was the one thing that he noticed that stuck out to him and really made an impact on him. So that's an important piece of the puzzle, and everybody's going to see something different. When, like, you could have 5 people looking at the same thing, everybody's going to see a piece of it differently. And you got to take all that evidence together instead of just, seeing what I saw,
Yeah, I'm actually I've been contacted to try to track down that cutout actually because up there outside of Trout Lake and Carson, I'm a long time underground caver dude
Okay.
going into
Yeah.
caves and stuff.
Well, so was
So
Datus. Yeah.
and I remember driving by his yard and seeing that. It's since disappeared. So I'm trying to track that down just to see what happened to that Bigfoot
All right.
cutout thingy.
Yeah, I did. Do you know what? I'm going to go back and look in my stuff. I actually talked with his grandson.
Yeah.
So I got his grandson's name and stuff. I'll see if I can find it and I'll send it to you.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And find Albert Ostman's diary, dude.
I
Okay?
will.
We're,
We're working on
I
it.
have got to tell you, I just been like pulling teeth to get him to go back east, but we are finally doing it this year.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Um,
Okay, cool.
So, last question: how can people connect with you? How can they get your work? Because I know you have published a magnum opus.
Okay, yes. Well, no, I have not published a magnum opus yet. Yeah, I published a magnum minor. The Mountain
A
Devil.
pamphlet.
But anyway, on to thank you, Hannah. I gotta say, yes, I swear to God, I'm gonna finish the big book on Ape Canyon this year. But that being said, if you want to know just pop culture fun stuff, the Siege of Ape Canyon, that's being produced by Small Town Monsters, is coming out in about 3 or 4 weeks. So I have done interviews and some stuff about Ape Canyon, one of which I greatly regret. But what's coming out from Small Town Monsters? Yes.
They are an amazing production.
My name is Marc Myrsell, and I endorse this message.
Yeah.
Monsters, the Siege of Ape Canyon is going to truly tell in cinematic form the story about Ape Canyon and the larger cast of characters that made Ape Canyon research happen. I've gotten the rushes from Eli and Seth, and they're just like great. It's just amazing. So the way that you can get a hold of me, the best way you can get a hold of me is just on Facebook, Marc Myrsell. And I will guarantee you that you can friend me on Facebook, and you're probably going to unfriend me in about 3 minutes because I put up a bunch of other stuff on there as well. But friend me, unfriend me, whatever. But that's the best way to get a hold of me is on Facebook.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. Okay. Well, everyone, I think this has been, gosh, so many of you have stuck it out with us. So
Thank you.
thank you so much, Marc. We will have you back, and
Well, sure.
when we come back to the area, we will figure out a way to hook up. Are we going to
Yeah,
go back?
sure.
Yeah, we are. We're headed back in the
Because
fall.
he's up by Ocean Shores.
Is that where you're at?
We just missed each
Yeah.
other because I got your message, Hannah. You were in Ocean Shores, and it's only 2 miles away from me. But
Yeah.
driving time is like an hour plus around.
Yeah, I
Isn't that
know.
the truth?
Yeah.
It'd be
So coming up,
be faster
will.
if we grabbed a kayak and just
yeah, it would. You do it faster by swimming. But actually, up here, there is a small research community up here with Sandy
Yes.
Nelson and stuff.
yes, we know
Um,
Sandy.
You know, Sandy.
Yeah, this Sandy, they're great. And what people have told me in the research community is that you got to do something, because this is hot research area, and there are a lot of hot spots and nobody's doing it. And they're like,
It's
Mark,
true.
you have to do it. It's really hot.
It is kind of a sadness that we love Texas so much, because when it came time for us to leave that whole Olympic Peninsula area, and that whole area, is like, do we really have to leave?
Yeah.
I mean, we put one call out on Facebook, come tell us your stories, and we got so much, so much. It was like, wow. And we got to actually, we went to a SAS chat meetup, and we're able to share.
Right on. Cool.
Yeah, phenomenal people there. And Sandy actually will be one of the special guests up at Strange Days, the Olympic Strange Days.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Good.
So we were planning to go to that. Toby, if you're watching, we were planning to go to that, but things have changed.
Yeah.
As they always do. Yeah. So anyway, everyone, this is where we have to wait.
Yep.
What?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have to say goodbye now. Do you have the button ready?
Yep.
Are you sure?
Yes. So,
Okay. Well, thanks for coming, Marc. We'll
Right,
have
we'll
you
be
back. And remember, our job, of course, as always, is to investigate the unexplained.
Not explain the uninvestigated.
So until we see you again next week, you keep watching.
And we'll keep squatching.
Now, go out and find Bigfoot. Bye.
That damn Sasquatch.
They're squashing, they're searching, they're cracking some jokes. It's Scott and Hannah, your Bigfoot folks. From campground to forest, they're keeping it real. It's Squatch America Lab. What's the big